Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining in. In case you have any questions, maybe I can have Titus go first. Titus, do you have any questions? Your hand is up. Okay, I don't think so. So I'll be taking you through loops and functions in Python. And for the past, this is the third session, and for the past two sessions, we've gone through what Python is, the different lists and data structures in Python, as well as the condition statements and variables. So let me just share my screen and start the session. If you have any question, you can just unmute and then yeah, we'll go on from there. So before I start, all my code and everything that I'll use for the session, GitHub. Okay, so all the code you can be able to find them in the link I've just pasted. If you can't access the chat, the link is github.com/bethanyjep/funks hyphen and hyphen loop. So what are we doing in this session? I'll have my video off to be able to preserve bandwidth. Other than that, I think you're good to go. So what are loops and what are you going to cover in this session? In this session, we'll cover the while loops and while statements. And in while statements, you'll be able to see a statement such as break, continue, and how you can be able to nest if-else statements in your code. And then we'll also look into using for loops as well as functions and how to define functions, create functions, and lastly, how you can be able to use functions, a function created in one file in another file. So let's start with loops. What exactly are loops? Loops are, let me just give a background of what we normally do in programming. So most of the time you find yourself that you're repeating something over and over again. Let's say you're listening to your favorite song on Spotify. So every time you want to listen to the song, you'll have to go back again and go through the whole process again. Go loop through the songs and then find, let's say you want to only listen to your liked songs, loop through it and then find your liked songs. So loops basically are statements that help these repetitive actions that you do. So you will be able to repeat these same things until a condition is met. Let's say you want to shuffle through all songs until you find your liked songs. So it will only give you the liked songs in your liked songs list. And then, so for the while loops, it will stop when the condition is met. So let's say, for example, I'm in the wrong notebook. Okay, so let's say, for example, we are creating a while loop. So let's say, for example, you have numbers. So let's say you define a number. This is 3, and you want it to loop until it reaches number 12. So while the number 12 you add the number until it's equal to 12. So +1, you add another number, and then once you are able to loop through the numbers, you will print each number that you have. So let's see the output, and then I'll explain it better. So when you have the number 3, and you want to count all the numbers until it reaches 12. So until the number is not equal to 12. Once the number is not equal to 12, you continue adding the number until it becomes true. So this is what while loops are. Sorry, I'll have to go. I unfortunately have to admit people. I'll be going back and forth. So while is used to go through until the statement that is met is false. So the while is while number is equals to 3. So you go through it while number is not equal to 12, print 1. And then, while number is not equal to 12, add a new number. And then you also print the number. So for instance, the number is 3. So every time you get the number goes through the loop, you add 1. And then if it's not equal to 12, you print. It will print until the number is not equal, until you reach 12. So let's look at another example, like when you're using greater or less to. So let's put on and then use while. So while number is less than let's say 23. You add number plus 1 and then you print the number. So it will do the same thing until the number reaches 23, 24. It will continue looping through the numbers. I hope that makes sense. So if you have a question, be sure to just paste it on the chat. Okay, let's give it an example in a game. So let's say you want to play a game of snakes and ladders and you're using your dice. So a dice, you can be able to roll a dice. Let's say you roll the number of times you roll, and then each roll is, and you can count each roll. So for instance, you have a dice and you want to roll it. So each roll, you'll have a number, each roll, and then each roll will be a count. So in this game you're playing, we want to determine how many times you will roll until you reach a specific value. So we can import random. From there, let's say while we want to roll it so every time you roll it, you will be able to count the number. So you add count plus 1. And then, so we want to roll until the value is equals to 5, right? So the number of rolls we can have it as a random number, right? So a minute. So we can be able to generate random numbers. So a random integer between 1 to 6. So if the roll is equal to 6, right? We generate a random integer and we print the number of rolls. Print see what this will do. This will give us the number of times you roll until you reach the number 5. So the roll here, we've created it to be a random number. So let's say you roll the dice once, it gives you 1. The second time you roll it, it will give you 2. So each time you roll the dice, it's a count. So each time you count. And then the last thing you do is you can be able to track the number of counts. So a minute. So what else can we print in this? So we can print the number of counts. So let's say, how many times did you try until you reached the number 5? So we can say you rolled your dice to the count. So you rolled it 6 times. So we want to change the value for here to be 6 times you roll it for you to get 6. That's 9 times. So you can be able to just play around with the numbers. How many times did you roll until you get 1? How many times did you roll until you get 7? Say it's rolled. Oh wow, there's so many. So you can keep the numbers small, because if you give it a wider scope, it will definitely give you a wider range. Okay, I hope you've been able to understand that concept. So this is a game, and the user. So let's add a new trick to this game. So you also want to include the user to add their number. So so we go back to the same code that we used. Let me reduce the value here. Yeah. So now I can be able to do the same thing. Oh, I'm so sorry. So you can be able to use the same code. Mm. Okay, so I think what I've done is I've given it too much room, so it will still continue running until I stop it. So let me just close this. Then I come back again to the same file. But as I continue, let me just continue for a bit. So what we were doing is we wanted we gave a random number, and then from that number we were able to predict how many times, if I give a specific number, how many times will I have to roll the dice randomly to reach that number. So now we want to so if this is a game, if you're telling the user now to give you an input of what number you can be able to have, how many times will the user now be able to interact with this? So with this, I did not put a terminating function in my loop. So it will take a while for it to start up. But let me just continue the code, and then we'll go back to writing the code. So with this is the code that we used, being able to have a random generated roll, and then being able to determine how many times you have to roll the dice to be able to reach that amount. So the next part of this is, let's say we want the person to give us the roll. So we'll have the person give us the input. So we can have the value the user input the value, and then we can tell the user. So if this is a game, everyone will want to like probably quit the game, and then so for the user to be able to play the game, you'll have to have things like you can be able to quit, you can be able to skip, etc. So the first thing here we're doing is including the break. When you include the break statement, you can be able to have the user either have their name and then roll the dice and then give them the value, or give the user permission to. So if I give the user permission to like create their name, so my name is Bethany, yeah, and then I'll be able to roll the dice. Then I've rolled once, so let me roll again. Yeah, so I've rolled 3 times. I've rolled, how many times did I roll to reach how many times did I roll to reach the value? I rolled it 3 times, and then you do it all over and over again. But then if a user wants to quit the game and doesn't want to continue, you can give them the break statement. So break will break the while loop from continuing. So if I add quit here, you just quit the whole game. So I roll the dice twice. But if I want to continue, I'll just continue typing my name. I've rolled 3 times to reach the number, and then probably add another name here, Joy. Joy rolled 2 times, etc, etc. So the break will break the loop from continuing. The other part of loops is using the continue function. So with continue, let's say you've rolled the dice and you don't want to. So with this, you can enter your name or quit. So if I leave it blank, what will happen? It will just continue. Because if I don't have any value, it's not that I want to quit the game, but I don't want to also, I don't have any value given. So I will skip the whole function down here, the whole, not function, the whole loop down here, and have the game restart again. But if I use break, so break is for quitting. So if I use break, I quit the game. It just quits. So yeah, I would not roll the dice anytime. Okay. So we go to the next part of this, and that is, oh yeah, I had a task here that you can be able to do at your own free time. So generate a random number between 1 to 5, a random number game. So a user can be able to use this to now you have the user guess a number and guess a value like 2, and you can be able to count how many times. What does this whole loop do? So I can be able to guess a number, and then from guessing that number, I've used a random generator to also generate a number. So if I guess it's the right number, it will give me, let's see, let me continue. Guess 3. Okay. Give me a minute. Yeah, I've guessed 3, I've guessed 4, it's not the right one, I've guessed 1. Yeah, so I've guessed it in 4 tries. So like you're playing a lotto game, or you're trying to figure out, a friend is telling you, I have a number, guess what that number is. And let's say the friend has 4. So you can be able to also create such a game. So this is a task, and I've added some further instructions you can be able to do to also add some further functionality in the game. Okay, so let's go to for loops. So for loops are used to navigate sequences. So you can be able to loop within sequences. So let's go to for loops. So let's say, for instance, I create a list of animals. So I can name it animals. And so for the list, this is how it creates the list. So let's say the first animal is an ant. B C is for cow, and then elephant. So the for loop, you can be able to iterate within the list and give an output. So for instance, for an animal, in the result. So our results, we've been able to print the whole list. So secondly, you can also iterate through a string. So let's say letters of a word, let's say a long word. Let's say the color green. And then you want to iterate through the word. So for letter word, print. Okay. As I said, feel free if you have any question, you can be able to type them on the chat. Thing you can look through is a range of numbers. So let's say I want to look through numbers between 1 to 10. So for A in range 10, in A. Yeah, I get the numbers from 0 to 9. And then the other thing is we can be able to create a two-step range. So a two-step range is whereby you say from what value you want to begin from and where you want to end. So for A in range 2, so from here you can just print you'll be able to get the values from number 2 up to the number before 10. Okay, and then so let's give ourselves a small challenge. What if we want to print even numbers in a given range? So this you'll have to do it in three steps. So the first thing is get a for loop for A in range 0. Let's say we want to print up to 12, and then the range 2. I mean the steps. So from there you can print. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So you get only the even numbers in a given range. So the other way you can do this is by using arithmetic functions. So for instance, for B is A multiplied by what's our output. So we multiply each value by 14, and this is the output that we get. Okay, and then oh wait, okay, I've done something wrong here. This is supposed to be an example for another part, but anyway. Okay, so how else can we print even numbers in a given range? So you said we can print it by steps. But the other way is using for loops. So if A in range A if A modulus Oh, yeah. That's the answer you get. So you just find the modulus. Modulus is the remainder. So if if I divide like 0 divided by 2, the remainder is obviously equals to 0. But if I divide by 3, the remainder will be 1. So the other way is we can be able to perform different operations on loops. So for A in range we do with it. So maybe we can find the square. B A square. Oh, wait, what? Oh, this is a square. Yeah. So this is also another way you can be able to perform operations in loops. So this other the task in this is creating a multiplication table. So I think I created it by mistake earlier. So creating a multiplication table, you can be able to. So a multiplication table is just basically doing something like what is the multiplication of 12? So 1 times 12, this is the output. 2 times 12, this is the output. So you can also create a multiplication table given a number. So if you're doing like for number, then I have someone input the number. So what number do you? Then for in a range of 12. So for x, then we do the multiplication. So b is equals to you print your output. And then so let's say I get 0 times 0 times 12, 1 times 12, 2 times 12, 6 times 12. I mean 3 times 12, 4 times 12, 56. So this is creating a multiplication table. Okay, so any questions up to there? Anyone with anything before I continue to function? Okay. Since there's no questions, let's go to functions. So for functions, a function is a reusable piece of code that you write. So you can be able to use it in multiple places in the application. So once you just create a function, you can just be able to just call it and use it anywhere you want in your code. So why do we use functions? It's functions you can be able to simplify complex. With functions, you can be able to simplify complex. You can be able to simplify complex things that you're doing in your application to make it more understandable. So, like if you want to create a new user, how do you create a new user? So you can just create a function determining how you create a new user. The other thing is a function is manageable. So you can be able to manage different functions in your application rather than be able to come up with your own. So let's go ahead and create our functions. So the first thing is, when you're creating a function, is to define. So let's say I want to define a function to print hello world. So for me, my hello world, because we're doing the bootcamp for East Africa, will be hello East Africa. So let me define it. So the function can be so someone who has the mic on.
Johannes, can you mute your microphone?
Okay, I think I've muted him. Okay, so we are defining hello East Africa. So this is how you define a function. Hello East Africa, then what will the function do? So the function just print hello and then East Africa. So from there I can just call the function. So what is it? East Africa. I run it and it will give me the output. Mm-hmm. So then the other thing about function is you can be able to add arguments. So for instance, I want to add different countries. I'll create hello East Africa and then add the word country. And print, instead of printing hello East Africa, I'll print and then so for this to work, you have, when you're calling the function, you'll have to have an argument inside. So probably I can have create a variable inside. Maybe I can write Kenya. So it will be hello East Africa. It will give me the output hello Kenya. So I've added the value of a country. We can also add more than one parameter. So for instance, these are different ways you can be able to add your output. So if I do this, it won't run. It will give me an error. Tell me, yeah, there's one required argument that's missing. If I do this, it will also give me an error. Kenya is not defined. So for this, I can only add strings inside here. If I give you an input, sorry. But if I give you a way to add your input, so maybe you can say you're from Uganda. Let me do it again. So let's say you're from Uganda. So you can just add the value and it will give you hello Uganda. So we want to make it a bit more interesting. So we want to add the greeting of a specific country. Instead of you giving out hello East Africa, I want to make it more personal. So maybe you can define hello our function again and have two arguments inside. So the greeting and then the country. what I want to print is values. So it will be the greeting first, then I add the country. So I can do this in the ways that I had listed earlier. But let me have it as two input values. So I can input first what country I'm from, and then also hello in a country. So hello. So how do you say hello in the country? So I can say I'm Jambo, and then country from the output is, oh wow, no space. Yeah, I should add that. So this I add this here. Then this is called concatenation. So we look for different greeting. I don't have any in mind. Oh, we speak Swahili also in Tanzania, so I can say jambo. Two positive. Oh no, this is uh, so I'll have to add some space. Okay, I'll figure it out. I forgot it. We'll figure that out before I. So the other thing we want to do is being able to add conditions in your function. So how can you be able to add if, else, conditions, or even loops in your function? So let's go back to defining a function. So define, and then let me just copy the whole of this code. So we want to define a country, but then what if the user doesn't add any greeting inside? Yeah, I've seen the issue. Yeah. So what if the user does not add any greeting? So we can say can give greeting the value of none, but that it can be empty. It can be empty when a user is giving it out. So what if greeting is not happening? Say print, and then now I can have a default greeting. The default greeting will be hello at the country. And then else, and default argument name. Oh yeah. So you can't add a default, a non-default argument after a default argument. So I'll have to reverse this. Mm-hmm. And, first, and then the greeting. Mm-hmm. What else? So how do you say hello in your country? You can say I'm from. Yeah. Wait, it's not giving me the default. If greeting is equals to none. This is interesting. I'm so sorry. So again. So let me and run it again. So how do you say hello in your country? If greeting is equals to none. This is interesting. Let me go back to the code. I see what I'm missing. So if greeting is equals to none, yeah, then I can print. Oh yeah, I've seen my mistake. So I can be able to print hello name, but then if I do not have the greeting and the name, I'll have to redefine them. So this is how, if I run this code, this is how it will look like. So you'll have to first, if greeting is not, if you don't have the value of greeting, it will just give you hello East Africa. And the name has a default of East Africa. So it will give you the default hello East Africa. But then if you already like have the greeting in place, if you have the greeting Jambo, it will give you Jambo, and then the default is also East Africa. So you can have greeting as, so if you just print Tanzania, so it will just print hello and then the name Tanzania. So this is how the function will run. Okay, so the last, we're coming to an end. So the last two things we are supposed to do is how you can be able to now add return to your functions. So this is when you're creating a function to perform arithmetic calculations. So let's say I define, let's say multiplication, and have two arguments. I have A and B. So you'll have to return A. So if I call the function, I call it back. So the value is probably 12 and 34. This is what it will return to me. Huh. Okay, so let me go back again because it's, I think the machine is starting to be slow. So it's the same thing here. So if you add, so if I change this to multiply instead of add, also give me, oh, yeah. Yeah, now seeing why it's giving me a head. Multiplication. If we multiply, I'll get 8. So it's the same thing. So if I want to do division, if I want to divide, this is what will give me the answer. So you can also use functions to return values, that different values when you're doing mathematical functions, or even when you're creating anything that you want to return a specific value. Then so what we can also do is if we want to perform list operations in function, so we can be able to like create a deck of cards. So this is a little bit lengthy, so I won't be able to write it all down. but you can define the different elements of the card. So we have the numbers, you can create a list with all the different elements. So start from have etc. And then also from the deck of cards we have the each number has like an value. So we have the so how can you be able to use a function? So you will have to first define the different suits in the function in the card, and then also the ranks. And then what you do is for each suit, like for the hearts, you'll have to create a deck, a card. So if I have like two and then I have hearts, I'll have two hearts, and then I'll also have two of spades, I'll also have two of diamonds, and I'll also have two of clubs. Same to all this. So I'll have to have each of each. So once you now create each, you now append like the different suits and ranks together. And then when you print, you'll print your whole deck. So this is how the output would look like. So you define the different suits and then the different ranks that you have, and then create a deck. So append means is a method that add you use to add a value to a list. Then the last part is how can you now be able to import functions from one code to another. So let's say I have this function and I create a new file. I create a new deck. So from there I can so I have this function and it works here. So now I want to import it to another function. So I'll come here and import the file as import uh, import new deck. So I've already imported this new deck from here. So what can I perform once I have this new deck? What can I be able to perform? So I can, let's say, create a whole deck from this side. So for instance, since I've already created a deck here, I won't have to go through the process of creating the whole deck again. I'll just come and get the deck, import the deck, and then read the cards in each deck. And then for each card I print. So I just have the cards printed. And if I print it out, this is what will return. So it will give me the value of each card and what each card looks like. So like one card will be a 2 of hearts, then a 3 of spades, etc. etc. So that will be the output I get. The same output I did when I created the deck of cards. Yeah. Any questions up to there? Okay. So I'll just leave it there. The last part was a task to create a function to check whether
Hello, Bethany.
Okay.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Just check on unmute and ask your question.
He's unmuted, but I can't hear him.
Hello, Joshua.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
I can
getting
hear you
clearly.
now.
I think we lost you, Joshua, and you are muted. You didn't get what you said. Or maybe you can type your question in the chat. Okay, Bethany, maybe you can continue.
Okay, maybe I can just do the last task that is on the notebook. Then, okay. So the
And
last task.
Bethany, you're kind of far away from your mic. Yeah,
Am I okay now?
yeah, that's better.
Okay. Okay, Joshua, you can type your question in the chat. So the last part was, what if we, how do we now find out whether a year is a leap year or not? So let's try and create a function to do this. The first thing is we can trigger someone to enter the year. So you have to change, since when you're inputting a value, this you will be inputting it in form of string, so you have to change it to an integer. Yeah. Then from there create a function. So define the function. Yeah. So how do you know whether a year is a leap or not? So leap years are divided. When you divide by 4, you get modulus of 0. So if yeah. Yeah, this is a leap year. And then March have so let's say put say put 2020. What is the output? Yeah, the leap year. So yeah, I hope you've understood. So we've gone through loops. So using while loops and being able to break the while loop and continue. So break, terminate the whole process, continue, skip the remaining ones and start from all over again. And then from there we went through creating a guessing game. So you can also go ahead and add features to this task, and then to this task. And then the other part was for loops. So for loops is for sequences. So being able to loop within sequences, loop letters, words, and also loop in a range. And then from there, we went through how you can be able to now do arithmetic functions within a loop, a for loop. And then afterwards, the last part was about functions, being able to use functions, why we need to use them, and being able to use functions to now make reusable bits of code. So we first defined the function, then added the parameters. After adding parameters, we added the conditions, and also performed arithmetic operations in the functions. So we use the return to be able to return the arithmetic values. And then from there, we've looked into how you can be able to use functions to determine whether IA is a leap year or not. So attached are also the resources that you need. So these are the resources I used to go through to come up with this tiny notebook. And then from there, you can also find an exercise. So we've not gone through arguments and quags in Python. That's something you'll encounter when you're going through the AI gaming tournament, and also how you can be able to take your. So then this is the entire course you can be able to take on Microsoft Learn to help guide you on the same. So let me just show you a bit of sorry, I'm used to using my browser. Sharing is getting bad. Yeah. Okay. So you can look at the exercise down here. How you can be able to add arbitrary argument list and argument function. So you can do this exercise to be able to understand where
Hello, Bethany. Your sound is so low.
Pardon?
Your sound is so low. I'm struggling to hear you.
I'm sorry. Okay. As you saying, this is the last part we are yet to cover, and because of time, we won't be able to cover it. So you can take this exercise to be able to understand how you can be able to add arbitrary arguments and keywords arguments. That's args and quags to functions. So you can go through this, and then I also recommend going through this course. It's 3 hours. It's free of charge, and you can be able to learn about what Python is, how you can be able to set up your environment. As you've seen, I'm using VS Code. So you can also use VS Code for the same, and how you can be able to now do all these things we've been doing here, using while, sequencing data, etc. in Python. So yeah, that's all from my end. Unless anyone has a question, I'll give it back to Felix.
Okay, thank you, Bethany. Okay, anybody with any questions before we end the meeting today? Okay, Ramon, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
I was asking if Bethany can share the link for that Python what's the Python lesson on Microsoft.
All the links I've shared my GitHub repository. So it's at github.com/BethanyJep /funks -loops. So the link is shared on the chat. From there, the notebook contains all the links that I've been talking about. So you can just go through it and yeah, extract it. I've shared it on the chat.